So we hit the ultimate 49ers gold mine in gold country itself. This is Columbia. The other two towns are going to be Murphy's and Angels Camp. And they still have everything preserved here, including the Church of the 49ers, a school of the 49ers. And then, of course, I know I was in San Juan Bautista the other day, and we made a little bit of a joke. I accidentally ended up at jail, but I can go to jail here in Columbia as well. Restrooms, jail, and the school. Very convenient sign. Look exactly what we found on the ground. You guys might have heard of Angels Camp because Mark Twain made it famous. The celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras County. Well, this frog jumped over 18 feet. The San Francisco 49ers from Cloverdale. Cloverdale, nice town, by the way. But we talk about what the 49ers have added, and this is logging territory. Another logging truck coming through. I think logging is probably the new gold mining of the area. Should be the San Francisco Loggers or the Angels Camp Loggers. But we talk about jumping. The 49ers have a lot of guys with very impressive broad jumps. The most impressive, new 49ers safety, Marquise Seagull. 10 feet, 10 inches on his broad jump. Now, not as impressive as Dynamic Denny, the frog on the Walk of Fame here, or the broad jump of fame here in Calaveras County, who's over 18 feet. I mean, just think of that. Think of a human jumping the same relative distance, given the size differences there. That would be 60 to 70 yards. But Marquise Seagull does have an impressive broad jump, over 10 feet. One of the true athletes in this 49ers class. We've seen over the course of the past two seasons that San Francisco has really gone with these relative athletic score guys in the later rounds. We've heard executives talk about the later rounds being rounds where you want to take a swing and you have to find a trait to take a swing, right? So if you're going in that fifth round and you want to find a player who's not just a backup. You're not looking for backups in the NFL draft. You want to find a starter. And to find a starter, you've got to have something to hang your hat on in terms of scouting, something that can translate. And Marquise Seagull runs a 4.37 40, so he's got the speed, but I think that broad jump shows the explosiveness at 10 feet and 10 inches. Not a bad broad jump. All right, making our way here through Angels Camp. You could see behind me that you've got clothes hanging across the street in Angels Camp. What's that? Well, this ties to the 49ers as well. During the gold rush of 1849, the miners would be out away from town, but they would come into town ahead of big festivals and they would wash their clothes. So whenever there were clothes hanging across the road, that would mean that the 49ers were in town and that a big festival was coming up. So the third weekend of May is the frog jumping festival here in Angels Camp, and that obviously is just a few days away, and that means that they've got the clothes hanging up, an homage to the old days of the 49ers when the 49ers would come into town for the frog jumping festival. I think just we could have football uniforms hanging up because OTAs are just around the corner. 49ers rookie mini camp is just around the corner, and we could talk about seeing Marquise Seagull with his broad jump for the first time, or we can also talk about Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy finding a way to strike gold for San Francisco in this 2025 season. Speaking of that, looks like we struck gold. I promised the Highway 49 sign, which I have seen in the Levi's parking lot at 49ers tailgates. Well, here's an actual Highway 49 sign. You know that the state made Highway 49, the one that goes through the foothills. It connects a lot of these old gold towns like Angels Camp, Mariposa, so many cool ones. I feel that this is a super underrated part of California. But Shanahan and Purdy striking gold. That quarterback play caller dynamic has to be on point. And I think that the 49ers were very on point in 2023. I think injuries really derailed a lot of things in 2024. Such as the fact they didn't run a whole lot of screen passes. Look, there's a frog jumping on a bike. This is the city of frogs. We'll go find Mark Twain over here. But the 49ers, before the last few weeks of the season, were dead last in screen passes in the NFL. And that wasn't going to cut it. I don't think that Kyle Shanahan really had his fastball last season for a lot of the year. Then they really started to figure it out toward the end. And, maybe a lot of it was the fact that Christian McCaffrey was out. Once Isaac Guerendo was able to deliver from the backfield, I think that Kyle Shanahan got a whole lot more comfortable with the screen passes. From a spacing perspective, I think it really is necessary for the 49ers to have that threat out of the backfield. And then Kyle Shanahan's comfortable, then he could be in lockstep with Brock Purdy. When he's in lockstep with Brock Purdy, well, that's what the 49ers had when they struck gold in the 1980s. Bill Walsh in lockstep with Joe Montana. Shanahan has his guy in Purdy, and he has to make sure that that cohesion is found when the 49ers are calling plays offensively. I really do think it's rooted in the short passing game. So there is the man himself, Mark Twain, wrote the celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. There's a cabin out here not too far from Angels Camp. That's what made the Frog Jumping Festival as famous as it is. It's the original NFL Combine, right? But for frogs, and I think it's cool that we got a San Francisco frog. By the way, the San Francisco 49ers, the frog that last won in 1995, which is the last time that the 49ers won a Super Bowl, in January of 1995. We can't come here without talking about Brock Purdy's contract, because he too is about to strike gold with the 49ers. This, by the way, is the old Angels Hotel where Mark Twain, as it says here, his name was Samuel Clemens, first heard the yarn, or the story, which was later to bring him fame as Mark Twain, author of The Jumping Frog of Calaveras. So Purdy's contract will be full of gold. I think, I've already made my contract projection, and I think that we're now seeing a lot more people talk about this. I think there's going to be a little bit of APY inflation there, as there is in every single NFL contract. I think that you're going to see maybe a year, maybe 2 years at the end of non-guaranteed money tacked on to raise that above the level of $55 million, to be behind Dak Prescott. Who knows? Maybe ultimately they even get this above Dak Prescott's number of $60 million. But we did this from Shaver Lake, and now we have to do it from Gold Country. Guys, it's going to be above $49 million. I don't care how many Highway 49 signs I show you in Angels Camp. It's going to be above that $50 million mark. Then it's just going to be a matter of how much the 49ers can inflate things, or how much Brock Purdy's camp can inflate things to give the contract its final resting place. Now, ultimately, as long as the 49ers have cap flexibility, that's all that really matters. And I think they're going to be able to keep that short-term cap hit down at $15 million. Where exactly are they in these negotiations? Well, maybe you sign a deal tomorrow. Maybe it's in 2 weeks. Maybe it's this summer when we're in a different cool spot. But it's going to get done by the time the 49ers have to take the field. And a good sign that it will get done is the fact that Brock Purdy is at the 49ers offseason program, will be at OTAs, and I think is operating in really good faith. I think the 49ers are operating in good faith, and it takes two sides to finish a deal like this one. And it takes two sides on the field when it comes to football operations, Shanahan and Purdy, to make sure that you've got an offense that is clicking cohesively. One look up here, I think that the coolest part of Angels Camp that I've seen so far, besides the fact that the Frogs have their own Walk of Fame, is the clothes. And we talked about the gold miners clothes. That means that there is a big celebration coming to town, because the gold miners come to town to wash their clothes. They have to dry, right, above the road. Well, in 3 weeks, we've got the frog jumping competition. The San Francisco 49ers had a good one, the pride of the San Joaquin. You can see all the names of these different frogs. Sugartown Dandy, 19 feet, 7 1/4 inches, out of Oregon. An out-of-state frog. Here's Willie out of San Jose. Oh my goodness, 20 feet? So we talk about good broad jumps, and we talk about Brock Purdy's 10-yard split. We talk about what the best broad jump for the 49ers was 10 feet, 10 inches in this NFL draft. Well, just this worthless frog, that's his name, jumped 13 feet, 10 inches in 1941. So frogs can jump further than humans. And I think the 49ers need to draft one of these guys. Maybe not Slowpoke out of Stockton, but maybe one of the frogs that's jumping about 20 feet could help San Francisco. They've got athletes. Purdy's an athlete. Purdy's about to sign a contract. 49ers and their quarterback about to strike gold.